Hey class, today we're going to talk about the properties of multiplication and addition. This is really cool because these properties will tell you things that you can do in multiplication and addition problems in different ways to still get the same answer. So these are really good things to know. Alright, so the first one we're going to talk about is the commutative property. The commutative property tells us that even if you change the order, the answer will remain the same. Even if you change the order, the answer will remain the same. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look. In an addition problem, that's going to look something like this. So let's say I had 4 plus 3. Well, we all know that gives us 7. Now, if I change the order of that, is that going to give me a different answer? Well, let's look. Let's say 3 plus 4. Okay, same numbers, different order. Well, 4 plus 3 is 7. 3 plus 4 is still 7. Okay, so the commutative property tells us that if we change the order, we still get the same answer. Now, this still holds true with multiplication as well. So if I wanted to give an example of a multiplication problem, I could say, oh, let's just do 4 times 3. Well, we know 4 times 3 is 12, right? Well, how about if I change the order of that? 3 times 4. 4 times 3 is 12. That is still equal to 3 times 4, which is also 12. So as we can see, our answers are still the same, and that's what the commutative property is telling us. If the order changes, we will still have the same answer. Our answer will remain the same. And the best way to remember the commutative property is our key word down here. The key word is order. Okay? Doesn't matter what the order is, your answer will always be the same, as long as you're adding or multiplying. Alright, the next property we're going to talk about is the associative property. The associative property is a little bit different, but it's kind of the same idea. The associative property says that even if the operations are grouped differently, the answer will still remain the same. Alright, so we're still doing something a little bit differently, but we're still getting the same answer. So same idea, is just a different way. Last word, the key word was order. Let's see if you can think of what the key word is going to be this time. First, let's look at an addition problem. In an addition problem, this might look something like this. We have 4 plus 3 plus 2. And 4 plus 3 is in parentheses. Well, let's see if that will be equal to 4 plus 3 plus 2 when 3 plus 2 is in parentheses. It's interesting, isn't it? Alright, so order of operations, parentheses first. 4 plus 3 gives us 7. We bring everything else down, so plus 2. 7 plus 2 gives us 9. Bring down your equal sign, bring down your equal sign. Now let's try this one out. Parentheses first, 3 plus 2 gives us 5. Bring down our 4 and the plus sign. 4 plus 5 gives us 9. So even though they were grouped differently, we still got the same answer. Now let's look at a multiplication example. Okay, so a multiplication example might look very similar. So this time we're going to start, instead of addition, we're going to do multiplication. So 4 times 3 times 2. And we're going to see if that is equal to, let's see, how are we going to group this one? Let's do it the same way. 4 times 3 in parentheses. And we're going to set that equal to 4 times 3 times 2, except this time we'll put 3 times 2 in parentheses. Alright, as you can see, our grouping here is different than our grouping here. By the associative property, it should give us the same answer. Let's find out. 4 times 3 is 12 times 2. Bring down your equal sign. 12 times 2 is 24. Now let's see if the other side gives us the same thing. Over here we have parentheses first. 3 times 2 is 6. Bring down the 4. And 4 times 6 is 24. So we see that even though the order is different, our answer still remains the same. So our keyword for this one, in case you hadn't guessed, our keyword is group. Even though they're grouped differently, the answer is the same. And that's the associative property. If they're grouped differently, the answer remains the same. Okay, and we have one more property to talk about here. This property is called the distributive property. The distributive property lets us multiply the number outside of parentheses by both numbers inside. And the reason we're able to do this is that we are multiplying both of these numbers by the one outside. Okay, so normally by the order of operations, if we saw distribution, by the order of operations we would normally do what's inside the parentheses first, just like on the last problem. The distributive property is telling us that we can distribute and still get the same answer. Let's see if that's actually true. And let's do it the old way first. So using PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract from left to right, we are going to solve this side, or simplify this side. So we've got parentheses first, that's 2 plus 5, that gives me 7. Bring down my parentheses, bring down my 3, bring down my equal sign. Next thing we're going to do is 3 times 7, and that's going to give me 21. Okay, interesting. So using PEMDAS, that gives me 21. The distributive property says that whenever we have a number outside of parentheses, we can distribute it, which means multiply it by both of the numbers inside the parentheses and get the same answer. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this. That means I will do 3 times 2 and also 3 times 5. And I'm keeping that plus sign. 3 times 5. And then I'll simplify. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. 6 plus 15 is 21, which of course equals 21. So by the distributive property, we can multiply what's inside the parentheses by what's outside and still get the same answer as if we used our good old order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Alright, so that's our distributive property. We also learned about the associative property and the commutative property. If you remember the commutative property, the key word was order. The associative property, the key word was grouping. And the distributive property means you're going to distribute the number outside to both the numbers inside of your parentheses.